Hello Seekers! Welcome to the best how-to-play guide you ever see for Malediction, Loot Studio's new miniature card game. Well, you have heard about it, but exactly what the hell is Malediction? You have heard people say that's where Warhammer meets MTG, Magic the Gathering, but what exactly does that mean, right? Malediction is a combined game, a miniature card game that allows you to do some deck building, like MTG, where you choose the cards, spells, and everything you are going to use. But also you have the battle scene, right? Where you get a unique scenario and you're gonna play against your opponent using your deck building and move your units, casting spells, rolling dice, and this kind of things. And to do so, we must choose first one of the seekers. We have 4 monofaction seekers that you can find them over here. And we have other 4 seekers, 2 colors, right in the bottom. Pretty much we have 4 factions in Malediction overall. The main difference between them is that the Seekers, they function just like Commander in MTG. It's a special unit that's always available for you. You don't have to shuffle it in your deck or anything like that. It has a special scenario where you can live in a special zone they stay. And basically, it dictates the main strategy for your deck, alright? Take Vorendal for instance. His legacy allows you to move and attack with your fallen units, which is pretty much the undead counterpart for Malediction. So you mostly want your deck to be focused on fallen minions, damage dealing spells and everything like that. And note that his starting echo, which would be the mana you use to cast spells and everything else, is 25, because he's a monofaction seeker. When we take Londriel for instance, her starting echo is 20, because dual faction seekers, they have access to more cards. They have both factions plus some unique dual color cards they can use. So it's a balancing thing to make the game even, right? Once you decided which seeker you would like to play, you can go ahead and start your deck building. Today, the best place to do that is through TTS, Tabletop Simulator. There is an official mod there for Malediction, in which you can go ahead, choose your spells. Let me show you how it's done. Alright, so the TTS mod nowadays, you can just come over here, choose one of the 4 factions we have available, and then just hit place. Once you do that, the game is going to take a little while to load, but it's going to show you every single card you have available for that specific faction. So the units we have up here, the channel spells, I'll cover that in just 1 minute, the swift spells, there are just different kinds of spells, and the items you have available to use. Note that on the bottom left side, you're going to have the dual faction seeker related to that specific faction, and the specific cards it has available, okay? Once you're done just putting cards together like this to make up your deck, you can select it all, right click with your mouse and click on Save Object. Once you do that, you just name your deck and you're going to be able to load it for future times, okay? If you want some help deck building your favorite seeker, please check our deck building playlist to check the best interactions possible for that seeker and build a strong deck. Now that you're done building your deck, it's time to start playing. But before that, since you are here with me until now, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It will help a lot of people to check out this content and learn to play Malediction, right? So let's get to the game. Okay, right now you already have built your deck. Check out all the seekers, chose your favorite one, followed our deck building guide to do the best job possible. Now it's time to prove yourself in the arena. Every player has a set of terrains. Each faction comes with a different terrain, but that's just a suggestion. You don't have to choose the terrain related to your faction, okay? So for example, if you take Polionor, which is the Conclave of Spear, the blue one, Seeker, you can take the terrain for Deathshout Mire, which is the Legend of the Fallen. I don't know if it makes sense, but you can, right? Doesn't mean you can, it means you should, but it's your choice. Here, just for example, I took the Conclave terrain, which reduces the spell costs. Don't worry about it, you'll get in time. And how is the game played? Each player starts rolling the dice to see who places the terrain first. So here I rolled a 2, let's pretend our opponent just rolled a 10. So he places the first piece of terrain. In a 1 against 1 game, we are going to use 4 pieces of our terrains, okay? We start placing them from the biggest to the smallest. So we place, for example, one terrain here, the other player gonna place the biggest one, and then we are going, each player places one terrain until all terrains are placed, okay? It is important to note that every single terrain piece has to be at least 3 inches from each other, okay? We cannot be closer than that. After we place all the terrain, the last player to place the terrain is the first player to place the husk. But Bruno, what the hell is husk, right? Husks are these beautiful pieces here that they hold the relics we are looking for. I'll get that just by the end of the video, so stay tuned, okay? For now, just pay attention that you gotta place the husks. You can place them anywhere but the deploy zones, which would be these 4 corners of the map, okay? So we place the husks here. I play one husk, my opponent plays another one, and the rule is we cannot place the husks less than 10 inches from each other, okay? So I could place here. To make it easier for you to know where you can place them, you can just click on the symbol on top of it, and it's gonna create a radius area. So it's easy for you to know where you can place the husks, okay? So let's just place them like this, here on the map, and it should be okay. Awesome. Once we do that, that's the end of the setup phase, okay? The next move is to each player gonna draw 7 cards. These are your cards. And for the first turn, we must bid for initiative. Actually, we bid to choose the deployment zone, and the initiative, okay? By this time, we can already open the 4 starting relics. Relics are basically stronger items everybody has access to, okay? Now we have draw our 7 cards. We are going to choose any of these to bid for initiative. How does the bid work? Every card has an echo cost, that number on the top left corner. Let's take a moment and check the card's anatomy, for instance, okay? Every card has a number on the top left corner, which is the echo cost. As we said before, echo is like a mana or the only resource we have in the game, okay? It's how much it costs for you to put that unit, item, or to cast that specific spell, and it's also how many mastery points your opponent is going to get if he kills that unit. Mastery is basically your victory points, okay? So we have the echo cost over here, and we have several other attributes on the list on the left, okay? Basically, the first one is accuracy, how good your unit is to hit the opponent, the damage it deals if it hits the strike, the attack, or if he grazes the attack, okay? So this specific unit does 3 damage if he hits and 1 damage if he misses the attack, alright? If he has any ranged attacks, that's the range for that attack. The ranged attacks use the same bonus, status, and everything else than the melee ones, alright? How far this unit can move with 1 action point, its defense and its life, alright? Easy enough. If you have any questions, you can also check out the last page for the manual. It has this specific chart explaining what everything does, okay? Awesome. So back to our game. To bid for initiative, we just choose any of our cards, we press F to flip them around, and we place them in the middle of the battlefield. After our opponent has done the same, for example, he bid this card, we can just flip both of them. The highest echo wins the bid, okay? For the first round, if it's a tie, the players must roll a dice and the highest number wins. If it's the second round or on, and it's a tie, the player who is challenging for initiative wins the bid. Okay, let's put the cards over here. So, after the bid is done, the player that wins the bid decides if he wants the initiative, which would be this token over here, or if he wants to choose the deployment zone. Deployment zone is one of the corners. If I choose, for example, this deployment zone, my opponent is going to be on the opposite one, okay? So let's say, for example, that I choose this deployment zone, my opponent is going to be there, and he has the initiative. So he gets that token. What does the initiative do? Basically, it's going to choose whoever makes the deploy first, and whoever activates the units first. What's the deploy? Basically, is choosing which units you are going to use and put them on the battlefield. As we said before, your Seeker is always available, so I can, for example, take Londriel and place her here. She costs 10 echo, as you can see on the top left. And I want also to place her with this item over here, the Hornet Helmet. So I'm going to place the item with her. The item is 2 echo, Londriel is 10. As she is a dual faction Seeker, she starts with only 20 echo, as written on her legacy, right? I'm going to spend 12, so it will narrow me down to 8 echo. After I do that, I just take the miniature for that unit, Londriel is here, and place her on my deployment zone anywhere I want. I can place her here in the back, here in the border, okay? After my opponent has done the same, we start activating units. The player who has the initiative decides who activates units first, okay? So after activation, we are just going to spend our action points. Every unit is a different activation, okay? You can play 1 channel spell per unit activation, and your units have 2 action points. What are action points used for? Well, in the last page of the manual, you can check this chart over here. That also contains every basic action you can do, okay? But basically, you can move or attack with your unit or use its abilities, okay? So I can, for example, Londriel has a movement of 6, as you can see on her card. I can move her 6 with one action point and another 6 with the second action point to be nearby this relic over here, okay? After I make the movement, if I don't want to cast any spells, I just tap my unit and it's exhausted. It's just to show that you have already used that unit. Some abilities depend on the unit be exhausted or refreshed, which is like this before it's used, okay? Londriel herself doesn't have any activated abilities, but let's see our opponents, for example. He's using Auric, and Auric has this Reforge ability, which costs both his action points, okay? So if Auric doesn't want to move or make any attacks, he can use his ability instead of any standard actions, alright? After every unit is activated on the battlefield, we go to the phase that claim relics. I can only claim a relic if my unit is like this, engaged, which means less than 1 inch from the relic, and there are no other units nearby engaged with my unit nor with the relic. So for example, if Auric were here, none of us would manage to claim this relic because both of us are trying to struggle for it, right? Because I'll be pulling from here, he pulls from there, and nobody takes the relic. That's pretty much it, okay? And the same is true if he were like this. He's not engaged with the relic, but he's close to me and he prevents me from taking the relic, okay? But in a scenario where nobody is here to get in my way, the player with the initiative chooses first, okay? So if Auric were here, claiming that other relic, he could choose one of the available relics over here and place on his card, or he could take a random one from the top deck and place on his unit. Doing so removes the husk from the game and award the player who has a relic 10 mastery points for each relic, okay? What's mastery points? Pretty much mastery points is your victory points, okay? The player who gets the scenario's threshold first wins the game. But note, it's not that I managed to get the total points I need and I already won. I have to end the round with that points. So for example, on a 1-against-1 game, the scenario threshold is usually 40 mastery, okay, to win. So let's say I have just Londriel right now, I have 40 mastery, I have not won the game. If he does something that kills Londriel, makes her come to 0 HP, and she dies, she will drop the relic she has. Place a husk where she was, and I'm going to lose 10 mastery. So understand that mastery, you get mastery for killing units, destroying items, or collecting relics, okay? But the relic point, they are only worth while you hold your relic. If you drop it because your unit is dead, you lose those points as well. Okay, so if no player has won the game by the end of the round, and the round ends when all units are exhausted, both players have used all the activations they have left, we go to round 2. We go past the claim relics phase, we check if anybody has won. If not, we end round, which will give us a specific amount of echo, which you can check on this chart as well at the end of the manual, and draw 2 cards, okay? By this time, the player who doesn't have the initiative can choose to contest the initiative, pretty much the way we did on the beginning of the game, okay? The change is, if the player that is contesting the initiative chooses to bid, for example, I want to bid this card for initiative, the player who holds the initiative can choose not to bid any cards and just give up the initiative token, okay? You're not obliged to fight for initiative every single round after the first one. Okay, so this card is banished, it's not part of the game anymore, and I won the initiative, and we start everything again, okay? The player who has the initiative is going to choose who makes the deploy first, who activates the units first, and we are going to move our units, make attacks, cast spells, and everything else, alright? We talked about spells, but I failed to mention it that we have basically 2 kinds of spells. We have channel spells, like this one, the Manifest, and we have swift spells, like Shift Winds, okay? The difference is, during the activation of one of your units, you can only play 1 channel spell, okay? Some units have a way around it. For example, Polionor can cast 2 channel spells, and some channel spells have specific circumstances, like Consume Carcass, that can be cast as a swift spell if the condition is met, okay? But as a rule, you can only cast 1 channel spell per unit activation, but swift spells, you can cast as many as you want during any unit activation, not only yours, okay? That being said, we were left only with the items. You saw me deploying Londriel's item, right? The Hornet Helmet. Deployment for items can be done during any deployment phase, okay? which means that if on round 1 I placed only Londrel and she ended the round like this, with nobody engaged to her, on the deployment phase for round 2, I can spend the corresponding echo and place my item on my unit, okay? The only rule is that my unit cannot be engaged by an enemy for me to place, to deploy an item on it. Every unit, as a rule, can only hold one item and one relic at the same time. Some units have a special ability, like our king himself, that's called Man-at-Arms, that allows him to hold more than one item, but that's a specific rule for specific ability, okay? That's pretty much how the game works, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please check our gameplay playlist to see how the game works on a real scenario, and check our deck building playlist as well to take the best strategy for every given seekers, okay? Well, that's it for today, guys. See you next time.